What's up, guys? Podcast number 2 for Sdotbell MMA. Very excited about all that I have to talk about today. The first thing on the bill is UFC 230, and it was a card that delivered, one of the bigger cards this year. I'm going to go down the list for some of the biggest fights that we had on there that I'm excited to talk about. I'll go down the bill. Let's start with Sijara Eubanks versus Roxanne Modafferi. And I want to bring up Sijara because she was supposed to be fighting the Bullet, Valentina Shevchenko, for the flyweight championship. But they pulled her out, and then the Bullet's going to be fighting Joanna Not Champion. That's my favorite way to say her name because of Chael Sonnen. But so that's what I'm gonna call her, Joanna Not Champion. That there was a lot of controversy around that as there was switching back and forth. But finally they decided on Valentina versus Joanna. So Sijara had a fight on this card, and she was pissed at Dana, and she was screaming at the UFC, and they're playing with her life, and then she misses weight for UFC 230. So they ended up averting a major crisis because she would have been on the card to fight, and she would have ended up missing weight. And I think this says a lot. If anybody knows who Sijara Eubanks is, she was one of the top fighters. She was actually slated to end up winning the tough season that she was on. So she was on The Ultimate Fighter. She was one of the top girls on there. And then she ended up having to pull out due to kidney issues because of weight cutting. And that's been a big problem for her because apparently she's a big girl. I really think she's a 135er, but for some reason she keeps forcing herself to try to stay at 125, and she's missed weight on more than one occasion. And when that starts to happen, that's where you need to be moving to 135. But she missed weight. She still fought Roxanne. She ended up winning a unanimous decision because she is a very skilled fighter. Don't get it twisted. She can fight. And I think she would actually give Valentina a run for her money at 125. But I really think her true weight is at 135. So she was tagging up Roxanne on the feet, forced her down, got takedowns, was beating her up on the ground, and got a unanimous decision win over her. And so for me, again, Sijara needs to just move up to 135 and start to work up there, because you can't be missing weight on a regular basis and then expect to get a title shot. She's kind of Yoel Romero in that way, where he usually can make weight, but he's getting to the point where making weight is more and more difficult, and he's missed weight for 2 championship fights, and that's something you can't do. But for her, she's definitely got to move up to 135. And actually, Chael Sonnen made a pretty amazing joke, because Ben Askren was very critical of Sijara also for missing weight and said it was very unprofessional. She fires back. And, Ben Askren's been calling out the entire welterweight division. And Chael said that what he should have said to her was, I'll fight any welterweight in the UFC except Sijara Eubanks, which would have been a killer ending to the back and forth that they had going on social media. But one of the next fights that I want to talk about, the main card fights, and UFC's 230's main card was amazing. Every single fight was a good fight. There were no boring fights on there. I'm not going to go in the order of the card. I'm going to go in the order of popularity, because to me, the second most popular fight that really I think all the real MMA fans wanted to see was actually the first fight on the card. But I'm going to skip that one for now and come back to it. And I'm going to talk about Jared Cannonier versus David Branch. Now that fight, David Branch ended up changing opponents. He was supposed to be fighting Jacare, obviously, but Jacare ended up getting moved up to fight Chris Weidman, and Jared Cannonier came and he took out David Branch in the second round. This guy was actually, apparently he was he's fought at heavyweight and light heavyweight, I believe. But he was, his last few fights, he was a light heavyweight. And Dana was actually not going to put him on this fight because he needs to work on his wrestling and his ground game. And that was apparent in the first round. The first round, he was having some trouble. David Branch took him down, was getting some strikes off on the ground. But you could see that his strength and his power was there. And you have guys who are, less disciplined, who are at light heavyweight, who aren't able to make middleweight because they don't want to really cut the weight. And for him, he talked about this, and I've become a fan of this guy. I watched his post-fight interview, which went really well, and he seems like a really likable guy, and definitely somebody to look out for if he can work on his wrestling and his ground game. But his power was there. He landed on David, and then he went in for the kill once he knocked him down, and then he was able to finish that fight. So it was an exciting fight to watch. It was a good match, and this whole card was really like the middleweight Grand Prix tournament, because there are guys that are coming up to watch, and then guys who we already know who are great fighters that have really solidified their spots in the middleweight division that I'm really looking forward to seeing in the future. The next fight that I thought was really, really awesome, and this guy, I think he's going to be he's going to be a top 10 middleweight really, really soon, is Carl Robertson. Now, Baby K is his nickname. He's got to work on the nickname he's got, because that's kind of shitty. I'm not gonna lie, but he's got a lot of skill, and apparently he was a professional boxer, and it showed in his striking when he was landing his shots again against Jack Marshman. Excuse me. He was fighting against Jack Marshman, who's a guy from Wales, I believe. He was landing clean shots. He had very tight, clean wrestling, and apparently he's still, learning and new to wrestling, because he does have a boxing background. But he's 7-1 now after this win in MMA, and this dude is clean. Like, his striking was very crisp. His kicks were really solid. His wrestling looked really good, and he was an exciting guy to watch. And he was landing with not only with clean, efficient strikes, but with power. Every shot he was landing, you could see had a clear effect on Marshman when he was landing those shots. And I'm making this prediction now. He is going to be a top 10 middleweight in the next 6 months to a year. Carl Robertson is a fighter to watch. He's very impressive, very skilled, and I was very impressed with how he displayed his skill set in the fight. Now let's get to the real stuff, the real action that was in this UFC 230 card. And that first fight that I thought was the real co-main event, but was actually the fight to kick off the card, which was Israel Adesanya, the last style bender, versus Derek Brunson. I picked this, clear and through. I knew that Israel Adesanya was going to make light work of Derek Brunson. Derek Brunson has a very wild style at times. He leaves his head hanging out there at times. He's a strong guy. He's got good wrestling, but when it comes to guys who are really top tier strikers, you're not going to be able to be leaving your head out there like that and then expect to have a good result. And what he did in that fight was he got exposed, and obviously Robert Whittaker was able to do the same kind of thing to him. And Derek Brunson did beat a couple legends. He beat Lyoto Machida, but the way he was in this fight was what I expected from him, which was he was going to be in there trying to wrestle. He's going to try to rush and leave his head hanging out there. And then Israel, with his clean, crisp, efficient, deadly striking, was going to just tag him up. And he tagged him. He went in trying to wrestle, and he caught that knee to the face. And once he caught that knee, it was really all downhill from there. And what I really like about Izzy is that he's very patient. He doesn't rush in and then go for the kill, and then maybe something can happen where he can get countered or something like that, or give a guy a chance to regain his composure. He picks his shots, and then he starts to pick you apart. And he even talked about it. He was just touching him. He would land shots, and then he knocked him down about 3 or 4 times, and then Herb ended up stopping the fight. And this was pretty much what I expected. I think after this fight, he's going to end up in the top 5 in the middleweight division. Dana White was talking about he wants him to kind of slow down, take a little break, and he said he was going to take some time to kind of relax and enjoy his holiday, because he's fought 4 times this year and he's won all 4 fights. And to me, there are some exciting fights that he's going to end up having coming up in the future, because one, Darren Till is talking about moving to middleweight. The fight that I really want to see is Darren Till versus Israel Adesanya. That is a fight I'm looking forward to. 2 really exciting newer guys. Darren Till is going to be at his true weight, where he's going to not have as hard of a cut as he did going down to 170. And then there are 2 guys that are very much game and are really 2 students of the game when it comes to striking. When you have the true kickboxer, and then the Muay Thai, the kind of karate Muay Thai style of Darren Till. So that's a fight I'm looking forward to. Izzy definitely impressed. He showed what type of fighter he was in this Derek Brunson fight, and he made sure to make light work of Derek Brunson. I'm truly impressed with that. I'm excited. Another fight I want to see Izzy in. If he doesn't fight Darren Till next, I want to see him against Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa is strong. He's got that knockout power. He's got that, the good looks and the awesome physique. And he and Izzy would have, I think, a really, really good match. And I want to see how Izzy would fare against him as well. And these are 3 guys that I feel like are going to really shake up the middleweight division. Darren Till, he's got to make a clear decision on whether or not he's going to stay at welterweight for a couple more fights, or just straight up go to middleweight. I think that's the best decision for him. I think he's going to have the most success there. But those are 3 guys I'm really excited to see kind of go at it, especially Izzy versus Darren Till. The next fight on the bill that we got to talk about is Jacare versus Weidman. Now, I picked wrong in this, but my assessment was correct. And my initial assessment in the last podcast was that Chris Weidman, in terms of his striking and his skill set, was gonna tag up Jacare, which is what he was doing in the first 2.5 rounds. But Jacare had the freaking will to win in this fight. This motherfucker was not stopping. He was pushing through. He did not want to just give up this fight, and he fought through, and he kept landing body shots late in the second and in the 3rd round, and then he landed that overhand shot to take down Chris, and it was over. And who was the referee? Dan Miragliotta. I don't understand why Dan Miragliotta did not stop that fight as soon as Jacare landed that shot. Chris Weidman hits his head on the cage as he falls, and he's clearly not moving. He partially is like halfway there in terms of his presence of mind, and he attempts to try to grab, but you could tell it was over. He's attempted to grab Jacare's feet, but he can't even get a real hold on it. And then Dan Miragliotta essentially forces Jacare to continue to hit him, and has to say, dude, stop the fight. Like, when you have time to look at the referee and say, what are you doing? Stop the fight. He's done. The referee needs to stop the fight. And the fact that he didn't do that was it was ridiculous. MMA World, if you guys have ever seen their YouTube page, they do pretty funny endings to a lot of their videos, and they said that basically it was the ghost of Mario Yamasaki that was dealing inside of Dan Miragliotta in that fight. But this was a great fight, man. Chris Weidman was doing an awesome job with the striking, and the thing is, with 2 guys that are very well known for their ground game, you never know what's going to happen. But this was a straight up striking war, right? The fight never went to the ground. They were standing up, striking with each other, and Chris Weidman's striking was it looked really, really good. I was expecting him to just pull it out in the end, but Jacare was just relentless. He was throwing with vicious intent each time. Those body shots started to wear Chris down. His power started to wane a little bit, and you can kind of see it, but I thought he was just going to kind of coast. And if anything, in the 3rd round, if Chris maybe had wrestled, got a takedown, could hold down Jacare, he could have pulled out the win. But Jacare just kept pushing forward, and he ended up pulling that fight out, and it was awesome. It was a fantastic fight. I enjoyed watching it. I really look forward to see Jacare fighting the winner of Whitaker versus Gastelum. I think Robert Whitaker is going to win that fight. Gastelum is going to put up a good fight, but I think Whitaker is definitely going to win when that fight finally happens, and then Jacare is going to fight the winner of that fight. For Chris Weidman, I think a good follow-up fight after he's had some time to rest and recover would be to get that Luke Rockhold fight back. So him versus Luke Rockhold would be a good fight to have, and then that's going to, again, make it a little bit more clear who's going to be next up after Jacare, because I do think Jacare is the one who deserves the title shot after winning that fight. And especially for him to come in on such short notice after Luke had to pull out, and to get the win was truly impressive. Jacare is a beast, both on the feet and on the ground, and now his striking's definitely got to be respected, and he showed that with pulling out this win. And now we got to talk about the one, the only Daniel Cormier winning in the second round and defending his heavyweight title, becoming the first two-division champion to ever defend both of his titles. And this is what I said was going to happen. Derek Lewis, very powerful, very strong, ended up giving DC a black eye. I commend him for that. But there are levels to this shit, and DC is on the next level. This, I believe, really works to cement DC in his place in history as one of the best heavyweights of all time, if not the best heavyweight of all time, and as one of the greatest pound-for-pound mixed martial artists we have ever seen. The fact that he was, his hand, he said it was feeling good, but yes, he had an injured hand. This guy went in there and wrestled and did what he always does and was able to easily take down Derek Lewis, ground and pound him, and then, force him into making a mistake and getting that neck and closing this fight out. Now, DC did give Derek his respect, said he was very strong, DC had a leg and Derek threw a punch, and he said he was blinking for about 30 seconds. And when DC was trying to get off Derek was trying to get off the ground, so Derek's working to get off the ground. DC usually does an inside grip on the hand, but Derek was still able to get out, which lets you know really how strong he was. And much respect to Derek in this fight. He did an amazing job. He was just putting in work for this fight, and I really respect the fact that he worked a lot harder to try to get to this fight and get the win. And but DC really showed why he's the double champ. Now DC is a true double champ, and then I believe now the last thing that's going to be for him is that he's going to take this Brock fight in March, and then he's going to end his career. To me, as truly as the GOAT. This guy's my favorite fighter. I have a lot of respect for him and what he's done. But who knows? We've got a couple cards coming up that we can find out what can happen. Gustafsson may pull out, John Jones may pull out, DC can make this weight, and he could go in there and get one more shot at John Jones before fighting Brock Lesnar, which I would think would be ideal. Is that there's a little bit less than 2 months before Gustafsson Jones. Something happens to Gustafsson, he can fight Jones, retain the light heavyweight title, and then fight Brock in March and finish his career. That would be ideal for DC. But if he just fights Brock, I'm okay with that. And there have been a lot of people talking about DC not, fighting everybody he's supposed to fight, and making sure that he's truly defending all his titles and everything. And I don't understand how a guy who is the second-ranked heavyweight is not like the best guy he could fight. It's like, oh, he could have fought Stipe. He clearly said he would have fought Stipe if he was on a full camp. And the thing was, he was really giving respect to Stipe. And actually, that's the fight I would like to see if the Brock fight doesn't happen. Is DC getting another crack at Stipe to clearly solidify his spot as the legit greatest heavyweight and beat Stipe twice and defend his title, his heavyweight title again, because he'll tie. If he can fight Stipe then that'll be 2 title defenses, which is second best in the heavyweight division. Stipe is the current best with 3, but if he can fight Stipe and then fight Brock, then he'd be tied with Stipe, which would definitely solidify his spot as the greatest heavyweight and still the pound for pound GOAT. But however it works out for DC, I'm very happy for him. I'm excited for what's in store for him going in next with the Brock fight for sure. So with that, there was also this weekend the press conference for UFC 232, Jones versus Gustafsson, which I just mentioned, and Nunes versus Cyborg. Now, these are 2 fights, championship fights, that everybody's really looking forward to. And John Jones is back, and in the press conference, I really like how he handled everything. He was wasn't trying to be the goody two shoes that he was trying to pretend to be for a long time. And he kind of embraced the role as who he truly is, which is an asshole. He's an asshole, kind of fucks up, makes mistakes, but he's legit one of the greatest fighters of all time. He's super skilled. And, sometimes you just have to embrace who you are instead of trying to portray some image that doesn't really suit you, the best. And with that, he was taking shots at Gustafsson. Gustafsson was taking shots back. And the thing was, a lot of people were asking John questions, but they weren't asking as many questions of Gustafsson. But what Gustafsson did that was really good was he started to insert himself into the conversation, promoting the fight, getting in there. And he was quick to say that he felt like he won that fight. And for those that don't remember, Jones won that fight in a unanimous decision. It was a very close fight. It was a war. It was the toughest fight we've ever seen John Jones in his career. But he did talk about not training for that fight. And then Gustafsson talks about, oh, you're making excuses. And John Jones, in very true John Jones fashion, says, well, if my excuse for winning a close fight was not training, what's your excuse for losing? And then Gustafsson goes on to say, I didn't lose. But in that exchange and in that fight, he definitely lost. And John Jones did a good job of going in on him in that way. Now for Nunes, let me not jump the gun. Let me talk about this fight itself. I think John Jones is going to win this fight. He's going to beat Gustafsson. He's talking about preparing a lot better for this fight. I think John Jones will beat Alexander Gustafsson in this rematch. It's going to be still going to be a close fight. It doesn't matter if John is training more and he's at his. Alexander Gustafsson is one of the best light heavyweights of all time. He's one of the best fighters in that division and in the UFC. And it's not going to be an easy fight for him. But John Jones is going to still win this fight because he is the best light heavyweight that we've ever seen, honestly, next to DC. But next, Nunes versus Cyborg. This fight is an interesting fight because if there's somebody in the UFC and on the female side that can beat Chris Cyborg, it's Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes, she's got vicious striking. She's got an awesome ground game. She's strong. She's big. She's got the size. But she has all the things that Cyborg has. And the thing is, Cyborg's a big girl. Cyborg is, I feel like Cyborg, if they needed to make a welterweight division, Cyborg would be a welterweight in the women's division because she is big, she is strong, she is powerful. And what I also saw that was pretty cool is that Cyborg and Valentina were training together, and then Joanna and Amanda Nunes are training partners. So it's cool that these two, championship tandems that are preparing to fight each other are actually training together and preparing. And I'm really looking forward to this fight, man. Amanda Nunes, again, I think Chris Cyborg is going to pull it out. I think she's going to be just too much for Amanda. But again, if there's somebody who can beat Chris Cyborg, it's Amanda Nunes. And we're going to see, we're going to find out. And I love that we get a chance to find out, really who is the best woman in the UFC right now with these two fighting. So it's going to be really cool to watch. UFC 231 is coming up. That is, what's the date on that? That is December 8th, and I'm really looking forward to that. I just mentioned one of the fights that's on there, Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna Not Champion. But also, there are a lot of fights on there that are really, really good that I'm really looking forward to. So I'll go ahead and I'll go down the list. Actually, even the prelims for this fight are looking really good. We've got Elias Theodorou versus Eric Anders, Devin Clark versus Alexander Rakic, excuse me. Caitlin Chukagian versus Jessica Ai, which is going to be a good fight. Alex Oliveira versus Gunnar Nelson. I haven't seen Gunnar Nelson in a little while, but I'm looking forward to that. Gunnar Nelson is really good, and so is Alex Oliveira. Alex Cowboy Oliveira is nice. On the main card, we've got Jimmy Manuwa versus Thiago Santos, Claudia Gadelha versus Nina Ansaroff, Renato Moicano versus Mirsad Bektic, Valentina Shevchenko again versus Joanna Not Champion, and Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega. So what I'll do is I'll make my picks for the fighters I'm most familiar with. I'm not familiar with every fighter on this card, but I'm familiar with a lot of them. Elias Theodorou and Eric Anders. I'm picking Eric Anders for that one. I have seen both those guys fight, and I think Eric Anders can pull this one out. I know Caitlin Chukagian and I know Jessica Ai. Caitlin Chukagian is a really solid flyweight, and Jessica Ai is really good too. And that one, I'm gonna go with Caitlin on that one. Caitlin Chukagian to pull out the win for that fight. Cowboy Oliveira, Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Gunnar Nelson. Who do I want in that one? I'm gonna go with Gunnar Nelson. I think Gunnar Nelson is gonna be able to pull that one out. I think Thiago Santos is gonna beat Jimmy Manuwa. Jimmy Manuwa is a good fighter, but I think Thiago Santos is gonna pull this one out in the light heavyweight battle that they're gonna have. The next fight, I am very high on Renato Moicano. He is very talented, very skilled. He beat Cub Swanson. He lost to, I believe, yes, he did lose to Brian Ortega, but Brian Ortega is fighting for the title for that reason. He's so good. So I think Renato Moicano is going to win that. I think he's the next guy in line when it comes to the featherweight division, right behind Brian Ortega. So I think it's Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, and Renato Moicano in terms of the guys that are really up there in the featherweight division that everyone really has to look out for. So I think Renato's going to pull that one out. I think Valentina Shevchenko is going to smash Joanna. She's done it before in their kickboxing days, and she's going to do it again here in the octagon. She's just too good. She's too savage, and I got kind of a little bit of a crush on her. So I think she's going to pull that one out. And I am choosing T-City, and I'm saying it now, so don't worry. I'm not going to change my opinion. T-City is going to beat Max Holloway. Love Max. He's awesome. He's a great fighter. He's a great champion. Brian Ortega is the best featherweight in the UFC. He's the best featherweight out right now. He's a beast, man. His ground game is just otherworldly. His striking has come into its own. He's got really good boxing, man. He's just such a skilled fighter. And the thing is, I was watching this guy when he was doing YouTube videos with the Gracie brothers on the Gracie Academy YouTube page, and then I saw a couple of his lower MMA organization fights, and I'm thinking, that's cool, and then to see him to come up into the UFC and to be where he is right now, and to kind of watch the rise and the growth, man. He's got the look, he's got the skill set, and I think he's got the heart to pull this out. And don't get me wrong, Max is a beast, and it's not going to be an easy task. But I think when it comes to delivering damage, Brian Ortega's got what it takes to take out Max Holloway, and I'm choosing him to be the next featherweight champion. And so with that, 231, it's going to be a fun card. That one's in Toronto, Ontario, for those. And that's going to be, again, on December 8th. So make sure you guys are checking that one out. The UFC also released their new schedule. So their new schedule is coming up for 2019. They actually signed a new deal. So their last Fox card is going to be in, I want to say, it's going to be in December. It's the, who is it? I'm drawing blank. Oh, Kevin Lee versus Al Iaquinta. Kevin Lee versus Al Iaquinta is the last Fox card. And so UFC will be moving over to ESPN. And so let's take a look at who they've got, or excuse me, what events they've got coming up. So January 19th is going to be at Brooklyn. It's going to be a UFC Fight Night event. It's going to be on ESPN Plus. Then January 26th is going to be in California. They're going to have UFC 233. Then February 2nd is in Brazil. UFC Fight Night. It's ESPN Plus. Then February 9th is gonna be, I believe, in Australia. I want to say it's gonna be. Yes, it's gonna be. That's why it's February. And that's gonna be UFC 234. February 17th is UFC Fight Night on ESPN, not ESPN Plus, which is so folks who don't have the ESPN Plus membership will be able to check that out. February 23rd, UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus. March 2nd. UFC 235. That's the card we expect to see. Brock versus DC. If all works out, that's going to be in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. Then they've got ESPN Plus fight nights on March 9th, March 16th, March 23rd, and then on March 30th, they have a regular UFC fight night on ESPN. So you guys make sure you look out for all those upcoming events and who they're going to announce for these fights. They're going to definitely have some good ones coming up on there. For people that are going to fight on those cards. So it's definitely some stuff I'm going to be looking forward to, and I hope you guys will be too. Oh, actually, some other news that I just found out today that's going to be that's really, really interesting, that I'm really not sure what's going to happen. Floyd Mayweather is going to make his Rizin debut in December. He's going to fight for Rizin. Now, it has not been clearly stated if this is going to be an MMA bout or if this is going to be a kickboxing bout or a boxing bout or some combination of bouts. But this guy will be fighting a guy named Tenshin Nasukawa, who is apparently undefeated kickboxer and undefeated in MMA. On Floyd's Instagram, he's got a picture with him signing a contract, and on one hand he's got an MMA glove, but on the other hand he's got a boxing glove. So we gotta wait to see what type of fight this is gonna be. I'm looking forward to it. I expect it to be very entertaining. If it's anything other than, it might be boxing with like but leg kicks, which I might I might have to say, in any other form except for, boxing, Floyd's probably not gonna last. But the guy that he's fighting is a small guy. Is a guy who's fought at, as low as 125, and we know these days Floyd's fighting at 147 or 155, 154 and a half, 155. So the thing is, whatever weight they decide to put this at will play a role. But the guy he's fighting is the smaller guy than him, but he's an established and experienced kickboxer and MMA fighter. So this is going to be entertaining to watch, man. I still want to see Khabib versus Floyd a little bit. And yes, that's something obviously we're not going to take serious. But, if Floyd can do stuff like this, he can do a Khabib versus Floyd Mayweather. There's no reason that can't happen. And, there's a chance that we might be able to even still see Floyd in the UFC. But it might end up being kind of a CM Punk situation, because I don't know that Floyd can do anything to these guys. They'll come in and just take him down and then kind of make light work of Floyd. But who knows? This fight is supposed to take place at the end of December, December 31st, in Japan. So they'll be fighting in the Super Arena in Saitama, Japan. The Saitama Super Arena. So they're going to be fighting December 31st. So you guys can look out for that. It's going to be entertaining, man, no matter what. Floyd is he's going to do what he does, man. He's rich and he's got a lot of free time. So he might as well just come out here and make some more money and put on a show. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. what else? Oh, I wanted to bring up something that I thought was really, really important to mention just for fighters in general, which is the importance of good wrestling in MMA. And now for me, as an MMA fighter, I've got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, and obviously I'm working my striking, so my boxing and my kickboxing, it's still at a pretty a lower level, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. And then the newest thing I've started to work on is my wrestling. And now I've had some wrestling experience in terms of what I've picked up from BJJ guys who were wrestlers. So I've kind of used those guys to help me, and it's definitely helped me a lot in BJJ tournaments. But I've actually started to train wrestling, and actually after I'm done with this podcast, I'm heading to the gym and I'm training wrestling and BJJ today. So for me, I've just really started to see the importance of being a good wrestler, and guys like Ben Askren, who's coming into the UFC, have shown how you can literally have little to no striking and just be a world-class wrestler and have your way with a lot of guys. And when you look at who are the champions in a lot of these divisions, their wrestling skill set is really what sets it apart. If you go down the list, the heavyweight and light heavyweight champion, Daniel Cormier, is a world-class wrestler, right? Right now, Robert Whittaker is not. He actually comes from a karate and striking background, but he's got fantastic wrestling defense, really good wrestling. He does wrestling tournaments. He's honed his skill as a wrestler, which is why he was able to hold off Yoel Romero in those two fights, because he's got really, really good wrestling. But then you go down to welterweight, who's the champion there. The welterweight champion is Tyron Woodley, who's a fantastic wrestler. And I know what you guys are gonna say. You guys are gonna say, oh, but maybe they won with the striking and da-da-da. But I'm gonna come back to that in a little bit. Let me keep going down the list. The 155-pound champion is Khabib, who is a fantastic wrestler. Then we have 145. Max likes to bang, but he's again a guy who's got good wrestling. The bantamweight champion, TJ Dillashaw, is a fantastic wrestler. Again, he won with his striking, but his wrestling is A1. And now the new flyweight champion is a wrestler, Henry Cejudo. Mighty Mouse, who was a former champion, had A1 top level wrestling, and it played a big role in a lot of his fights. And so guys, who want to say, yeah, but these guys, maybe they won on the feet or they won with their striking or da-da-da-da-da. These guys have that ability or that option because of the threat of their wrestling. Being a good wrestler allows you to have so many more options, and one thing a lot of people talk about is that it allows you to dictate where the fight is going to take place. If you don't want to take the person down, then it's going to be a standing fight. If you want to go to the ground, you're going to take them down, you're going to go to the ground, and then that's where the fight's going to take place. And so I've realized that becoming a better wrestler is important for me in my development as a professional MMA fighter, and for anyone who's really who is within MMA or who is in currently professional fighter. Developing your wrestling is going to allow you to have more options in terms of what you can do on the feet and on the ground. And the thing is, again, being able to dictate where a fight takes place is a big deal, right? If you don't want to strike with somebody and you want to take them down and you can do it at will, that's a very, very important skill to have. And it's definitely why I've been focusing on working my wrestling. And I'll definitely be posting probably a couple sparring sessions of my wrestling today. So you guys can also look out for that. I think that's all I had to talk about today. Thank you guys. Again, podcast number 2 is in the books. I'm very happy about this. I hope you guys enjoy watching and listening to the podcast. Like my page, like this video, subscribe to my YouTube, youtube.com/s.bell. Follow me on Instagram at s.bell. You can also find me on Facebook, s.bell MMA, facebook.com/s.bell MMA. Thank you guys again for watching. And that's it for now. Peace. Podcast is finito.